So I was going to deliver the exact same talk as yesterday. And then I thought, well, some of you were here yesterday. Some of you weren't. I could talk a little bit about experience in medicine, but I also thought I'd talk a little bit about how do we get this done in our organization? How do we get our organization activated and thinking about it? So I left last night and I realized through talking to everybody and having conversations and having wine, and it's really hard for me with how I look to eat a bowl of rice while I'm drinking wine and not make a mess out of myself. I realized when I got back to my hotel, I hadn't eaten anything. So I went to the hotel and they said, oh, we don't have any food right now. So I wandered down the street and I found a coop and I got a sandwich and I walked back into the hotel. There might have been a beer in the bag. There might have been 2 beers in the bag. And I walked back to the hotel and I wandered into the bar and Mikhail and Christian and Natasha were sitting there. So I sat down with them and we had a drink and we had a conversation and it was wonderful. And I went up to my room and I went, do you use the expression went down a rabbit hole? Do you know the expression? I went down a rabbit hole. I should have never read something that I read, but I did. And in the bathroom, there was a placard that had this word on it, Umwelt. And ich kann Deutsch sprechen ein bisschen. I looked at it and I'm like, I don't really know that word. I mean, I know it means environment, but I don't know it for sure. So I looked it up, and there is no English translation for the word. There's not an exact English translation. So then I went further down the rabbit hole and I wanted to understand a little bit more about how the remote works. So I found out that it's about organisms and it's about how organisms interpret the environment that they're actually in. This scientist, Jakob von Uxio, developed this whole theory around the Umwelt, and that while we might share a space, we see things differently. So what do I mean by that? What the heck does this have to do with customer experience? So I share this space with my family. And this is not the bats, but I put the bats there for a reason. I share it with my chickens and my dog and my horse and my wife and my children. And we're all living in the exact same environment on the same land. But we don't all experience the world the same way. And even among the humans, we don't experience the world in the same way. And so this is how things work. I went down this rabbit hole and I started to think about my dog. This is Purdy, who lives with me, and she's a bloodhound, and she can follow a scent trail that's over 12 days old. It's over 12 days old. I don't want to smell something that happened 5 minutes ago. She's got to deal with things that are 12 days old. And then this is my horse. This is Windsor. And I don't know if you know this about horses, if you've spent much time around them. I know you have a horse camp, that when there's a thing called a variable heart rate. And when you're with a horse, it's the pause between your heartbeats. They sync to your heart rate. So horses can sense and read human emotions. If you see their ears go back, they probably don't like how you're behaving. They can feel vibrations in the ground long before we feel them. They can feel things that we don't. And so I started to think about this in the context of customer experience. And Jakob's whole theory was around perception. What does the customer notice first? Interpretation. How do they assign meaning to when they walk into your casino, when they work with your pharmaceutical company, when they go to your camp, when they get power from you? How do they assign meaning to the interactions with you? What actions do they take next? And what feedback? How does the system respond when you give them feedback? And I said, well, heck, this is customer experience. This whole thing. Your customer experience is determined by their view from their Umwelt, from their subjective reality. Do you know this? Do you know this story? Okay. I can't do what David Foster Wallace said. He's one of my favorite authors, but he tells this story that there's 2 young fish swimming along one day, and they come across this older fish, and the older fish swims by and looks at them and says, "Good morning, boys. How's the water?" And the fish swim on, and a little while later, the 2 younger fish look at each other, and the one says, "What the hell is water?" When we think about the environment that we're in, we're not always thinking about what surrounds us, and what surrounds other people and how they interpret it is completely different than us. Which leads me to a completely disconnected topic. How do you get your organization ready for customer experience? And the way I explain this is I use the 7 Steves. And since this is an AI conference, how amazing is it that I can type into Sora that I want a photograph of Steve Jobs, Stephen King, Steven Spielberg, Steve Buscemi, Stevie Nicks, Stevie Wonder, and this is Stevie O'Dorney, all together in a room. And it produces this. I mean, if that's not magic, I don't know what is. But let's see how this connects to the Umwelt. I shared this yesterday. Stephen King, most interesting situations. In your company, with your customers, when you're trying to get people to understand what is the value of customer feedback, can be expressed as a what-if question. Now, we can get really weird with what-if questions. I can ask AI, what if Stephen King wrote children's books? What would they be like? Well, it would be like Cujo's Day at the Doggy Park, or from The Shining, My Vacation with Friends. No, that's not what we want AI to do. We want the unanswered questions and the unasked questions. And Mikhail shared it yesterday. If we can understand the customer's realities and expectations better, we get to ask big and generous questions. Our organization gets to ask big questions about how might we? How might we reduce risk? How might we find efficiencies? How might we reduce churn in our business? By asking bigger, more generous questions. So if you have to go in front of your executives, you have to go in front of your company, this is going to tell us the answers to how might we? How might we reduce risk? How might we reduce churn? And you're not going to get at the appropriate answer fast enough by sitting around a conference table with your colleagues scratching your heads. Ask your customer. Stevie Wonder. Change your words into truths, and then change that truth into love. I mean, we heard from Ariel yesterday, we'll hear from her today, how important kindness is in how we respond and how we act. I shared a bit about it. This is kind of my algebra of experience, and the algebra experience is about a customer's truth. So what does this mean? We enter into nearly any situation. Walk into a restaurant, we came here today, we go on a website with what? With expectations. We have expectations of what we're going to get, what we're going to receive, how it's going to go. We hope it's going to be easy. We hope it's going to be nice. We don't want to go in a restaurant and the waiter's a jerk and the food's terrible. We have expectations. Our expectations plus or minus the reality, what happens in our Umwelt, that is your customer experience. What happens next is that customer experience, the feedback that you got, divided by the actions that you take, multiplied by the measured impact of those actions, is where you will find your return on experience. I lost the clicker. There it is. We live in an era of swipe left. We can just as easily change the restaurant we're going to, the store we're going to shop at, who we're dating, by swiping in another direction. And I shared this yesterday. It's my favorite quote. If you get an email from me, it is in the salutation of my email. This is from David Augsburger. He was an Anabaptist minister. His focus was on human relationships. And when you think about it, it's so true. Have you ever sat in a conversation and you realize the other person, even a stranger, wasn't paying attention to you? And now imagine having a conversation with somebody you care about deeply, and they're not hearing you. They're not even listening to you. Being heard is so close to being loved that for most of us, the two are indistinguishable. As are the buttons on the clicker. Here we go. Mr. Spielberg. People have forgotten how to tell stories. Stories today don't have a middle or an end anymore. They usually have a beginning that just never stops beginning. You've experienced it with brands that just talk about themselves. You've experienced, so when you have to sell customer experience into your company, guess what your story needs to have? It needs to have a beginning, it needs to have a middle, it needs to have an end, it needs to have good guys, bad guys, it needs to have tension, it needs to have all the great things that stories have. And usually a great story for executives to selling customer experience ends with some sort of business value. This is like, I'm a capitalist, but I'm a conscientious capitalist. I want to do well by doing good. I want to embrace what customers need. I want to see companies embrace what customers need. But they're not going to do this if it's not going to result in business. That's why we're here. Too fast. All right. So what actually happens is CX Insights reveal what the customer's actual lived journey was. Not the journey that we think in the brand's mind. We think is a brand that somebody's going to come into my store, they're going to go onto my website, and they're going to make a purchase. Well, is that what happens? I work in pharmaceutical. It's not what happens. Somebody gets a symptom. They take 6 months to go to the doctor. They finally go to the doctor. The doctor gives them a prescription. For every 100 prescriptions that are written, even for serious conditions, only 60 of them get filled. And of the ones that get filled, by the time we get to 6 months, only 20 of them ever get filled again. And just because they get filled doesn't mean they ever get taken. So when we start to think about the stories, and we start to think about business results, we should think about it in terms of the speed of need. This is true. We actually put wheels on a suitcase we put a person on the moon 2 years before we ever put wheels on a suitcase. Think about that. Do you remember the world without wheels on your suitcase? A couple of us here in the room do. It was really stupid. And when you think about the fact that we put a human on the moon before we ever did that, what if we would have listened to what people needed? What if we would have observed people walking through airports with a big carter dragging their luggage? We would have put wheels on the suitcase, but we weren't paying attention. We were too focused on trying to get to the moon. Okay. Steve Jobs, most powerful person in the world, is the storyteller. Storyteller sets the vision, the values, the agenda of an entire generation that is to come. If you want to get your executives, you want to get your company on board, you want to get your colleagues on board, you want to get your customers on board with giving you feedback, you have to tell a better story. I worked with a big pharmaceutical company. They were setting out on doing customer experience. And the first question I asked them was, what's your intention? And they said, what? I said, what's your intention? They said, Rich, what do you mean? What's our intention? Our intention is to get feedback. And I go, oh, that sounds terrible. What's your intention? What are you going to do with it? How do your customers know? They said, what do you mean? I said, if I were you, I would let your customers know. We're going to ask for your feedback. And this is our promise to you. Our promise to you is that we are going to read every bit of it. We are going to analyze every bit of it, and we are going to do something about it. And we're going to let you know what we heard and what we did. And we're going to let you know what it changed. That is how you tell a story to executives to get them on board with customer feedback. So CX Insights expand our narratives in the context of the customer. We're not going in and saying, yes, we're going to make more viz aids and we're going to make more websites. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. We're going to do things because the customers are showing us or telling us that there are gaps, there's something missing, there's something they want. They're going to leave us for somebody else who does something better. It also helps you redefine your brand. And there's too many brands that just talk about themselves, right? Imagine walking into a cocktail party, walking up to a group of people you never met, and the first thing you do is tell them everything about yourself. They're going to go away pretty shortly, right? They're going to disappear. And so brands are like, yeah, we're customer-centric, but enough about you. Let's talk about us. The customer's going to tell you what they want to hear. The customer's going to tell you how they define you. And in talking to your executives, helping them understand the value is putting our brand in the context of what the customer needs. Some of you saw this yesterday. Not this, but this. So many brands go in, and even the executives talk about this. They talk about features and benefits of the product. Did Mario ever want the flower? No, the flower was a means to an end. Mario wanted to throw fireballs. He wanted Peach. But Mario wanted a superpower. The objective isn't to talk about the flower. The objective is to talk about the superpower. And you don't know what the customer's superpower is until you listen to them and you observe them. And if you can tell your executives and teach your executives, we are going to unlock the emotional connection between us and our customers, what they want and what they need from us. The brand's not the hero in any of this. If we make the brand the hero, then we overshadow the customer. The opportunity, I think, is to put the cape on the customer. That's what the best brands do. It was never about Glenda, the good witch. She gave Dorothy the powers that she never had. It wasn't about Yoda. Yoda put the cape on his customer. Cinderella, classic story. fairy godmother made everything happen. Cinderella couldn't turn a pumpkin into a carriage and make glass slippers and the mice into coachmen. She couldn't do it. She put the cape on the customer. That's what customer feedback allows you to do, is make your customer the hero in the narrative. I think this next one's my favorite one. We talk so much about the intricacies of who we are and what we do. Stephen Buscemi, just because people want to eat a burger doesn't mean they want to meet the cow. What is it our customers want? What is it our customers need? What is it our customers value most? What do our executives need to hear in order to commit budget and resources to customer experience, to becoming a customer operating system company? So, oftentimes, CX professionals tell their leaders about the scores, and the scores are important. I don't undervalue scores. I don't undervalue CSAT or CES or NPS or trust, which is my favorite score, helpfulness. But they're leading indicators of what we ultimately want. If we're talking to a CFO or CEO or CMO who don't want to meet the cows, they want to eat the burger, then this is the burger. For a CFO, the burger is customer lifetime value. It's revenue growth from existing customers. It's cost to serve. It's customer acquisition costs, reducing those. Reducing customer reacquisition costs. It's net revenue retention, and it's first touch resolution. If you're running a call center, and you can tell your CFO, if we can listen in the call center, we can find the trends in the current problems, then we can reduce cost to serve, and we can create first touch resolution. So when our customer calls in and has a problem, one, we identify the problem, we solve the problem, we understand the root cause, and our best rep on the call center suddenly becomes base zero. And they can change that for the rest of the company. We might need less reps, or our reps are going to be better, all because we listen to the customer. That is the burger that the CFO wants in order to fund your customer experience program. Here we go. All right. Stevie Nicks. There's always magic to be summoned at any point. Always magic to be summoned. That's the only thing that I feel I'm able to give people. They respond to me because I try to give them only their own magic, not mine. We can get inside the heart of the customer and understand, what does it mean to the customer to go to that camp? What does it mean to the customer to ride on that train and see the beauty of Switzerland from that train? It's about their magic and giving them their magic. You're not saying, hey, isn't our train great? It's, didn't you have a magical time? Didn't your children have a magical time? Wasn't it magical that you took this medicine? It was easy to take and you don't feel sick anymore. And here's the thing about magic. They say that people don't change until they see the light. They actually they don't change when they see the light. They change when they feel the heat. I don't think that's true. It's forced me to change. But if I'm going to change and I'm going to make a sustained and lasting change, that comes from feeling the magic. That's ultimately what changes people. And in talking to your customers and talking to your executives about supporting customer experience and growing customer experience, they need to see the magic. They already feel the heat. Trust me. They've already seen the light. They see it in every quarterly report that they do, but they have to see the magic of what feedback can do for an organization. Stephen O'Dorney, his quote was short, "Hold my beer." What does that mean? Do you use that expression here? All right, well, if you're in the south of the United States and you're with a bunch of your buddies and there's probably like a motorcycle or a pickup truck and lots of beer involved, and one of them says, "Hold my beer," it's either going to be the best thing ever or the worst thing ever, because that person's about to do something fun, dangerous, or completely stupid. So this is the hold my beer moment. And what does hold my beer look like? When we're trying to get customers, we're trying to get executives to understand the value of customer experience. Complaints, when your customers complain and you hear it, pure gold. Because the opposite is the invisible hand. The invisible hand is that customer had a frustrating moment and they just simply disappeared. They never came back. Maybe they told a friend or two, "Oh, that restaurant is terrible." And then the friend didn't go. Customer complaints are a gold mine. If you hear them in your call center or you gather them in your surveys, be so grateful they're a gift, because now you have the opportunity to understand and to change it. Customers want less choice. If you go onto hotels.com and there's 47 hotels, you're going to spend so much time not making a decision. We actually have a bias, and our friends can tell us back there. Selection bias is a huge problem. Doctors actually want to see sales reps. Go figure. Believe it or not, we keep saying, doctors just want to go on digital and learn about the drug and make a decision all by themselves. They actually want to talk to a human. They want to have a relationship with a human. They want to know there's a human on the other side. And all the pharmaceutical companies were going out there, firing all their sales reps and spending millions and millions of dollars on websites and not understanding it's not either or. It's 1 + 1 = 3. The doctors actually wanted to see the sales rep. The website was a pull-through, or the website was an inspiration. And that's where the whole notion of better omni-channel came to be. But we just thought it was easy that they didn't want to see them. People want to talk to a human and not a bot. Except when. Right? The best call centers I've ever been on either get me an answer or get me to a human in the fewest steps. If I can at any point, and I don't know if you guys do this, I do. If I get on a call center and know it's a bot, I start going, human, human, human. I want to talk to a human. And the smart ones will eventually connect you to a human, right? Sometimes we want to talk to a human. Sometimes we don't. If you can solve my problem with the least amount of friction possible, great. But if you can't recognize it and get me to a human, and it's not one thing by 1,000%. Oftentimes people enter into customer experience and say, we're going to find that one big thing that's messing up the company and it's messing up our market share, and we're going to fix it. You might, but you should be focused on fixing 1,000 things by 1% as well. Customers are individuals. And if we're listening to them, we're understanding the nuances. We can connect the nuances. We can find themes and red threads in the nuances. But we should focus on finding wisdom. These are kind of my hold my beer moments when I talk about customer experience. When we're sitting in front of executives and they're not sure if they want to do this or not quite understanding it, I'll look over at my colleague and say, hold my beer. Because I'm about to talk to them about these things that they actually care about that drive financial results for their company. All right. Yesterday, I wanted to show something in my graphics, got messed up. I talked about people that how they connect to brands and how they love brands. And I was always saying when I went out to meetings that no one has a Pfizer tattoo. And through the beauty of the internet, this was not AI. Sora did not draw this. This is an actual human that did this on purpose. And so I changed my script on that one to no one has a good Pfizer tattoo. Since this is focused on the AI bubble, this graphic also yesterday was a little bit fuzzy. I think about these technologies, I think about AI as authentic interactions. That's what it's designed to do. That's what it helps us do. I think about GPT as gaining people's trust. If we're going to create a GPT, if we're going to use GPT technologies, then we're probably using them for good. I don't think anybody in here is evil and using them for bad things, right? We're using it for good things. We're using it to help customers and we're using it to help business. But I often think about it as this is a pathway to gain people's trust. And Christian, this one was for you. I promised you this picture, and yesterday it got garbled, so I put it back. I don't like to go shopping very much, and my wife likes to take me shopping. So one Christmas, she took me shopping, and I tried to hide, and she found me. So, thank you very much. I'm glad for any questions.